Hi, this is Alexander Rossi, 2008 Formula BMW America's and World Final Champion, and you're listening to F1weekly.com.
There are fewer than 30 men in the world qualified to drive Formula One. A mere half dozen, perhaps, to win. At this moment, I'm inclined to think you're not one of them.
You know you want to. Keep up the good work, Stephen, and there you have it. There you go.
Hello, this is Desiree for F1weekly.com. I'm your in-depth correspondent.
Let's go. With the qualifying, Steve.
Welcome to F1weekly.com. My name is Clark Rogers. I'm the host of the program. I'll be joined by Nasser Hamid, my co-host. This is podcast number 819, February 10th, 2020. Nasser?
Gracias, amigo. Birds are singing in Barcelona as Formula One testing comes to town next week. Back to El Jefe now.
Thank you, Nasser. On today's program, Jones wins Daytona. Honda now building airplanes. LCH will show off his new hairdo. And this week, we have a special interview with the man himself, Pedro Lamy. And of course, we need your contributions to keep this program on the air. Just click on the Support F1 Weekly tab. You know you'll want to. Nas, welcome to the studio. How are you?
I am doing very good, sir. You are starting on a high about Jones at Daytona. And please tell me all about Lewis's new hairdo. I can't wait.
It's so exciting. Lewis is porting a afro-like hairdo now. Trying to be... Remember the show Room 222? Mr. Dixon? Well, there he is. LCH, El Machismo from Compton.
Compton? Straight out of Compton?
Yes, Compton.
And what's up? What's happening at Daytona? You are a closet NASCAR fan. I finally find out after 10 years.
Well, Le NASCAR, it's real racing. It's not for kids. It's for men.
I thought you used to call it ration.
It is ration.
Well, have you seen this fast lady, Miss Haley Deegan?
Very good, very good.
Yeah, she's from SoCal, and she is making quite a name for herself by performance and push and shove on the track instead of jumping on the hood of a Hudson Hornet or a 58 DeSoto. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
So let's talk about something a little bit, below NASCAR and all in Compton. The Chinese Grand Prix. Do you think it will happen?
No.
Well, they have canceled all the The Shanghai Sports Council has requested to cancel all the sporting events. The Formula E has already been electrocuted, and some other sporting events were canceled. So let's see what happens here. Would you like this race to go ahead, sir?
No.
Would you like to be rescheduled?
No.
You know what? The stands are so empty there. What's the point of going to a race where there are no fans? I mean, they get their money from TV revenue. Take it to a place where 500,000 people will show up over the weekend. Buenos Aires would be one, and South Africa would be another. So this is, but this is the thing, Mr. Rogers. If this race is canceled, it will open up a little time for Formula One people who are, practically almost all of them based in Western Europe, to be home, which will give us an opportunity to go there and knock on doors and see if we can land some heavy-duty interviews. And I was thinking, if they confirm that the race is not going ahead, let's say before the month is over, then I can delay my trip to Europa, and then definitely will try to go to Graz and see if Dr. Marco will talk to me, or Christian Horner, or, Pat Simmons. We'll try to get some heavy-duty interviews, if possible. Now, as you know, this season is going to be very exciting because this is the final year before major rule changes for 2021. Many fans and pundits are asking and wondering if we will see the end of Lucky Strike at the end of this season, and I'm sure we already know what the answer is from your end. Will we see the end of Lucky Strike this season, sir?
Possible.
Who do you think is the most likely culprit if it happens?
Fernando.
No, he is in Dakar Rally. Somebody else, seriously.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. That was my senior moment. Claire.
You think so? Well, you're not too far from what I'm thinking. What we have here for the challenge to the Wolfpack is Animal Instinct, Prancing Horse and Red Hot Bull against the Shining Stars of Stuttgart and Stevenage, and as you just mentioned, also of Compton. I think the man most likely to do a Bismarck on Mercedes Armada, in just my humble opinion, is Max Verstappen. All he needs is a little more oomph or zen, I should say, from Honda engine and a wee bit more aerodynamic magic from Mr. Newey. And as far as racing talent is concerned, Max is definitely overflowing in that department. Just ask the man you just mentioned, Charles Leclerc or Pierre Gasly. In Albon, Max has his own Bottas and Rubinho, who will not bother him most of the season, and may even be told, Max is faster than you. And we've heard this audio before. Max has matured a lot since terrorizing Carlos Sainz Jr., and I should say Sr. also, and others in his Toro Rosso days. According to his physio and mental therapist, the erstwhile Dr. Marco, Max knows he cannot win the championship in the first corner. Max winning the title will make him the youngest ever world champion, and that is the racing and exciting point of the season for me. But Max is saying being the youngest world champion is not much issue for him, just like Lewis is not thinking about his 7th championship. What say you, Senor, on a Dutch treat in 2020?
It's possible. Honda seems to be really getting their act together, including the fact that they're now building aircraft, which is unbelievable. I think that means they have made big steps forward. Honda will no longer say a GP2 engine has won. They're going to leave that behind. They're going to have a little classier addition to their commentary, and I believe that it's very possible they could win in Melbourne.
That's what I am thinking also, but talking of classier approach, gee, I wonder why they went so low. But that's another story. Okay, now we come to the Prancing Horse and their dueling drivers. Thief in the Temple is probably how Sebastian looks at Charles. Like his hero Michael Schumacher, Sebastian was hoping to bring championship glory back to Maranello. After one season with Charles as teammate, it is pretty clear why Sebastian liked Kimi so much. The quiet man kept a low profile and a similar threat to the 4-time world champion. Charles' challenge to authority, I think, will play a big part in the outcome of the world championship in favor of Lewis or Max. I expect Charles to be more dominating an alpha male at Ferrari this season. He may obey team orders once or twice, but I do not see him, especially based on his speed and performance, to play second fiddle at Ferrari all summer long. And we must also keep in mind his manager is Nicola Todd, and we all know what his papa used to do at Ferrari. So things are looking very good for these two young whippersnappers, Max and Charles. Based on the speed that both Mercedes and Red Bull have displayed, I think Ferrari's best chance of winning the championship this year is to have what I call the Rosberg luck and have one of their drivers win the first few races and then back that horse, whoever that might be. At the same time, I just don't see Sebastian rolling over and playing dead for Charles. I think they will take points from each other, and the drivers may get the feeling of the McLaren drivers of the 2007 season when the belly dancers are in full swing at season end in Abu Dhabi. Also at the waterfront, another who could be a contender is Valtteri Bottas. And this is more of a PC mode of me saying this because I believe otherwise. In Melbourne, we will find out if there is a Bottas 3.0 in the making this season. He has the means and machine. The question is, will he have mil-spec TF to take the crown from a teammate who is more than a formidable foe? With strong bond, and this is what I really feel here, with strong bond between Toto and Lewis being on the verge of becoming the GOAT, if he can just repeat his average wins from past 3 seasons, I think Mercedes-AMG may already have a plan to see their name next to the driver with the most Grand Prix and championship wins. Do you see any scenario where Bottas becomes world champion while Lewis is his teammate?
Only when he's sleeping and dreaming.
When Bono wakes him up, it's all over?
Correct.
Now, do you see any implication of most successful driver was a Mercedes driver? I mean, do you think that's something of concern to Mercedes, parent company, and Toto and, his entourage?
No, I don't, actually. I mean, I don't think anything is going to change at Mercedes for the next 3 years.
Okay, so other great expectations from 2020. Daniel Ricciardo will get on the podium with yellow fever, also known as Renault, and that's just my hope and prediction. I also see Albon on the podium sometime during the season. A race win would be a great shock for F1 community, but well deserved for one or both. And talking of Ricciardo, his new teammate will be Esteban Ocon, highly rated by all and managed by Toto Wolff. Esteban beat Max in European F3, so the talent is there. The big question is, can he do to Ricciardo what Danny Boy did to Seb and Hulk? And that is a very, very tall ask. I think it's going to be very challenging for this kid. I am sure both Ocon and another managed by Toto driver George Russell are dreaming of taking a seat now occupied by Lewis or Bottas. For Boy George, beating teammate Nicholas Latifi will be easy peasy as they say. However, for Ocon, he has his work cut out. He has 2 years to get on top of Ricciardo to be considered for a plum seat at the dominating team of the day. If Ricciardo remains ace of base at Renault, then the Mercedes musical chair will stop for Ocon. What are your feelings on your fellow Francais?
Great driver, but let me put it this way. He has to beat Ricciardo. He has to out-qualify Ricciardo to save his bootay.
I think his desire, not knowing how he's going to perform, but desire and willingness and maybe at times frustration is going to lead into situations like we had with Ricciardo and Max in Azerbaijan. You know what I'm saying?
As do.
Okay. So there we have. Any more thoughts on who might do something big this season, sir?
No, because it's really going to be the LCH season, the final LCH season, where he finally gets all the Schumacher records.
What are the chances of an ex-F1 champion sitting on a beach chair in Alicante or someplace, Bilbao, and watching Lewis get all these records?
I mean, those are not chances that will be going on.
Yeah, I concur, sir. Okay, now we move on to some pre-season information. This time it will be more open to fans and media. Good move by Chase and Company. Live coverage of pre-season testing also provided, which is very, very nice. And I think because of the time difference, I will be at work, but I will try to see if I can catch some of the action on my break or lunch break or something like that. Any surprises you are expecting during the preseason testing, sir?
Ferrari will surprise with an extremely great pace.
By both drivers?
See.
Now we come to the flip side of F1's winning beat. Survey says, and tell me if you disagree, Williams to continue on their wayward journey, ably assisted by fabulous feedback from Roy Nissany and Jamie Chadwick, and that was Aussie-style zinger of the day. Dr. Rogers, Do you see a pulse for Claire's dollhouse in 2020?
No pulse, no house, no doll.
And Jonathan Williams is like the Ken of the Barbie doll situation. Next, more of the same from Haas drivers. This is my prediction, finding each other on the track. Good news is the team is going back to their original colors, which were pretty decent. And now I know there is a lot of lovey-dovey between the team and Grosjean, especially Günther Steiner and Grosjean. But I will be very surprised if we see Grosjean on the grid next season. And Gene Haas himself is hopeful. The owner of only American team in Formula One is expecting better results from his right-hand man, the aforementioned Mr. Steiner and his crew. And he said, and I quote, "I'm hoping the VF20 will return us to the kind of form we ran in 2018 when we finished 5th in the Constructors' Championship," end of quote, which definitely was a very impressive result for a small independent team. Haas F1 did very well in their first 3 seasons, but last year did a Williams, scoring only 28 points compared to 93 points in 2018, when they were 5th, as Mr. Haas said himself. You see any life or some improvement from Haas F1, sir?
Yes, I do. I think they're going to do well this year. I think they're going to go back to their 2018 form, especially since I believe Renault will be languishing, Ricciardo will be frustrated, and this is an opportunity if, and I don't even know what they're called anymore, Force India, Sandpoint, Point One. How about we just call them Sergio Perez's team? They are struggling and they want to get back to where they were 2 or 3 years ago. So it's going to be interesting how a couple of these struggling teams that fell back fight to come back forward a little bit.
I have to agree with you. I do not see much improvement either from Renault or Williams. I think the team that might surprise is McLaren.
Very true, very true. Williams has now become a synonym for stinky.
Yeah, which is pretty sad. But I will not be surprised. You know, another thing I'm expecting this season, again based on Lando Norris and your favorite word, pedigree, I think he should be very, very competitive. He should be able to do to Carlos Sainz Jr. And not that I want this happen, but I'm saying this because of his previous track record. He should be able to do what Charles Leclerc is doing to Sebastian Vettel. And wouldn't that be great if we can have some serious team rivalry in the McLaren once again?
Once again?
Yes. It's happened a few times with them, huh?
Hasn't happened since what, the 90s?
Well, 2007. Or I'm sorry, that season is deleted from your memory bank, right?
I don't recall that season, but nevertheless, I bet you Pedro Lamy remembers that season, and this could be a good opportunity for you to bring in this interview.
Yes, sir. First of all, my thanks to Mr. Pedro Lamy of Portugal. He has been racing for a long time, and we discuss his career, so I will let him tell our listeners his story. This conversation was recorded at Daytona International Speedway during the Daytona 24 Hours. Muito obrigado to Senor Pedro for his time. And also I would like to take this opportunity to say hello to our longtime listener in Portugal, Mr. Dr. Miguel. Thank you. Okay, folks, I'm here at Daytona with Pedro Lamy. Pedro Lamy, thank you very much for your time. How are you today?
Well, good. Thanks. Nice to talk to you.
Okay. You have raced quite a bit here in the U.S. What is the main difference you see in American racing scene and European racing scene?
It's a lot of difference. I mean, when you're racing with the same type of cars, the fights are quite the same in the tracks because the drivers are pretty the same. I mean, roughly the international drivers are driving here and there, so we know all people that is going around. But in America, the way they do the show is more put everybody together. I mean, since the beginning until the end, if you don't have a major problem, you are there to fight for the win. So they try to show the winner at the end, and the pass around, it makes a lot of difference comparing to other races out of America. So it's cool to race in America in this type of race, in long distance races.
Okay. You have raced for 24 hours at Daytona, Le Mans, and the Nürburgring. Which track is most challenging, and what are most enjoyable parts of each track?
I think all the tracks are unique, so different. All the tracks are different, but Nürburgring is a really nice track because it's really long, 25 Ks. It's all type of corners, challenge with the weather as well. So it's sometimes rain, sometimes part of the track is dry and wet. It's the most challenging track is of course Nürburgring, Le Mans as well. It's a long track with a lot of difficulties, but Daytona is especially spectacular as well. It's different than all the others with the bankings, all the things. So it's all the tracks you need to respect and to adapt, like Sebring, or in America Austin is a really nice track. So many tracks around.
Yeah. Okay, talking of Le Mans, going full speed at Mulsanne, more exciting at noon in daylight or midnight?
Of course, daylight you can see much better. Any corner. Mulsanne, it's difficult. Daylight or night life. So it's difficult to brake late and don't lose time there. So we arrive really fast.
You mentioned Austin. I really like that track. I go to the US Grand Prix every year. What was your first impression when you raced there?
Where in?
Austin.
Nice track. Nice, really challenging for the driver, and I really love it.
Okay, this gentleman, Domingo Spiedad, recently passed away. He was manager to Fittipaldi and Senna. How did you hook up with him early in your racing career?
He helped me a lot in my career. It was really important for me, and I had Domingos as a friend, and I didn't expect that we would lose him so fast and suddenly. So I'm really sad about that.
Okay, in 1991 you won the GM Lotus Euro Series. All your 4 wins came in the first half. Tell us about the second half.
From what?
In 1991, when you did the GM Lotus Series, you had 4 wins, which all came in the first half. So what happened in the second half?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Okay, too long ago.
Maybe I was controlling the points to win the championship, so I won. So it was good.
Okay, that's good. Okay, 1992 was another championship-winning season for you, winning the German Formula 3 championship with 11 wins, 4 in a row. Tell us about some high points and some lows of the season. Hopefully you remember some of those.
Yeah, many good points. I won the championship, so very competitive all the way through. And then when you did the international races, it was really good because we won the Marlboro Masters. We should win Macau, where I finished second. So because it was a misunderstanding of flags by the organization with the yellow flag. So I had a great season in Formula 3.
Now, up to Formula 3 and including Formula 3, among the drivers you were racing against, who were like some of the real tough competitors?
Nah, all are when they're racing really good drivers. I mean, but I don't want to talk with about anybody specifically because every race is on specific conditions and situations. So.
Okay. And what was it like working with team owner, Mr. Willy Weber?
Really cool, really nice guy. I really enjoy it. And on top, we had a lot of wins together, and it was a good season.
Are you still in touch with him, if I may ask?
No, not much. The last few years, not. Before, yeah, but not much.
Okay, you mentioned Macau and the Marlboro Masters. How easy or difficult it was for you when you were having winning seasons to get sponsorship from companies in Portugal?
At the time I was factory driver for Opel, so the sponsors I had was just a help to do more the international races. It was just like a deal and to keep the sponsors together with me for the future. At the time the market was completely different than the market today, and I believe today much more difficult to get sponsors. At the time I had good sponsors.
Okay, in 1993, you were second by just 1 point in the European Formula 3000. And I watched this on YouTube. You and David Coulthard had quite a battle in the closing laps at Enna Pergusa. What do you remember most about this race?
It was just a misunderstanding of laps. I spun on the dirty chicane, and then I come and overtook me. I come back, and then I thought it was one lap to go, and then the only chance was to touch him and pull him out, and actually he went off a little bit. I tried to push him, not to push him, but just try to overtake him on the limit, and I overtook him, but then I damaged my front wing, and then was 2 laps to go in stage of 1, and then I had the car damage. I could not finish the race. It was terrible.
You won the famous race at Po. I've been to this track, fantastic. How does this track compare to Monte Carlo and Macau in terms of driving challenge?
Yeah, Po is nice, but it's really narrow. Really, it's nothing compares to Macau. Monaco is narrow as well. It's nothing. It's nice, beautiful, but if you're talking a specific, spectacular track, is Macau. It's beautiful, but all these tracks are really narrows and really hard to overtake. So it's if you have a good car, you just go fast, and if you push on the limits, but to overtake and to show that you can go forward, it's quite difficult.
Now, you made your Grand Prix debut in Parco Monza with Lotus. Will you tell us how this deal came about?
I would just come that opportunity, and I had to go. So, and then I started in Monza. It was after the Zanardi's accident in Spa, and I had this invitation, and I, without a lot of experience, because I didn't have, I did only 1 year in 3000. That championship was not finished yet, so I jumped into Formula 1.
What was your experience or feeling after you drove a Formula 1 car for the first time? Was that a big difference between what you have driven previously?
Yeah, much more power. The brakes, carbon brakes, was really efficient, and the Formula 1 at the time were really difficult to drive. I don't say that to go on the limit, the cars of today is more or less difficult. It's just saying that the car, heavy steering, a lot of downforce, just a difficult car to adapt, and was without experience, was a difficult situation I had, but I had to handle and to try to be as fast as I could.
1994 was a terrible year in Formula 1, and you had a very bad testing accident at Silverstone. Do you remember anything what happened there with you at Silverstone?
Yeah, after all the accidents around that year, losing Roland Ratzenberg at Senna, and then I had my accident in Silverstone. Was just they changed the rules because the rear wing was supported by the underfloor. The car had the support on the rear that could stop the wing to move, or the rear wing to move, and they had to cut that because they cut the split the underfloor, the diffuser of the car in the middle of the rear wheel, and then they cannot have that support. And some teams had that problem, and Lotus had that problem with me, because the rear wing broke in a very fast corner, easy flat, and then I had a big accident and I broke my legs. So it was a car failure, and I stopped for a while.
You're here with Aston Martin. What's the game plan from the race? What is the minimum? Obviously, winning is the goal. What will satisfy if you don't win the race?
We don't, for the moment, we feel like we don't have very competitive car and it will be tough for us. It's one more race, try to do our best and try to finish, and if you can finish, maybe you can finish good if you don't lose much time during the race.
I wish you all the best and thank you very much. Or as they say in Portugal, obrigado.
Obrigado, thank you very much, all the best, take care.
Thank you.
Pedro, thanks for joining F1weekly.com. And there you have it, Nas. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after this brief message.
Hi, I'm Guan Yuzu from China, and you are listening to F1 Weekly.
Welcome back to F1weekly.com. Clark Rogers here, your host. And now, as we spin the globe and go around the world with Motorsports Mondial and the king, the Sultan himself, Nasser Hamid.
Thank you, sir. And sir, we did a very bad thing last podcast. Poor John Andretti passed away recently after a long battle with colon cancer, and we really should have mentioned this on our last podcast. So my apologies. John, of course, was son of Mario's twin brother Aldo and raced in IndyCars, sports cars, and NASCAR, always competitive in family tradition. I met him a few times when he was racing in different series, and he was very nice and willing to have a chat, so I shall always remember him. He was given a final lap at the Brickyard, and our sincerest condolences to his family and friends, and my apologies again for not mentioning this on the last podcast. Any thoughts on John, sir?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel for the Andretti family. It was a tough battle. Cancer sometimes is quite brutal, but he had a good life. Rest in peace, John.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir, moving on. We have a Aussie mate making his debut in IndyCar racing, courtesy of Mr. Roger Penske now. Bathurst winner Scott McLaughlin will drive for Roger. And at the Indy Grand Prix, the road races they do at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so good for him. Roger Penske and also Michael Andretti, they have now teams in Australian Supercar Series, which used to be known as V8 Series in days gone by. And, we have to always bring in something from Dr. Marco. He's such a quotable person. According to him, Charles Leclerc is the most talented driver outside the Red Bull orbit. So good call from him. And talking of Dr. Marco, he said that they're ending their association with Aston Martin after it's been bought out by Lance Stroll. And he's saying the end with Aston Martin as the title sponsor makes living with Honda even easier. Wondered if Honda was asking them to drop Aston Martin name. It was kind of strange, to have a racing car, Red Bull, and Honda engine, and Aston Martin. I mean, they should have thrown in, Toyota forklifts also, and Hyundai cranes too. Anyway, Russia saying niet to changing dates for Chinese Grand Prix. Over in the other hotbed of motorsports called Vietnam, they are confident their inaugural Grand Prix will go ahead in April. And Russia was officially, I'm told, asked if they can change the date. They said no. And then there is also talk of maybe putting in somewhere in between during the summer break, and teams were not interested in that. So I think if Chinese Grand Prix gets, I think it's going to get cancelled, not just postponed, and maybe come back next season. And you've already said your piece on this, unless you want to add anything more on this.
There's nothing to add, no time to add.
It's just time to chop chop. Daniel Ricciardo says the Netflix series about Formula One Drive to Survive has put the sport on the map in America. And I have to say, I even got some calls from friends who have no interest in Formula One saying how much they enjoy it. So it's good if it's reaching out to non-racing peeps, and that should always be the idea of doing something like that. Interesting. What goes around comes around. Chinese driver King Hua in quarantine. The Chinese Formula E pilot Ma Qinghua was placed in quarantine when he arrived in Mexico a few days ago, and he will be kept for a few days because of risk that he might be contaminated with coronavirus. So not a good thing. What is interesting, Clark? When I was a little kid, I went to the British Council Library, which I used to do all the time, to borrow books from them on motor racing, and there was this book called Grand Prix Greats, and it was written by Barry Gill, who was a very famous commentator from BBC and very well-known journalist. And there was a segment on Graham Hill. And me being from Karachi, have always remembered this story. In that book, he mentioned that once he was, going to Australia or coming back from Australia, and his plane made a refueling stop in Karachi. And since he did not have the proper vaccination, he was put in quarantine for a few hours. And his comment was, "Such is fame." So, small world we live in. Would you like to go to Karachi with me someday, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, I expected that answer. Okay, Toyota Racing Series from Pukekohe, of course, from New Zealand. That's where it takes place. Race 3 was for the oldest motorsports cup in New Zealand, the New Zealand Motor Cup. Great battle was expected by two drivers at the top of the championship. Igor Fraga from Brazil and hometown hero Liam Lawson, who was on pole. Shortly after the start, Fraga was put into a spin. He was able to continue, but by then Lawson was long gone. Lawson took his second win of the season as he also won the opening race on Saturday. He is now back in the lead of the championship, which he also won last year, very impressively over another Kiwi, Marcus Armstrong, who is in the Ferrari driver development program. Race 2 was won by a driver from across the pond, Aussie mate Jackson Walls. I believe he's from Sydney area. There are some interesting, all these races are available on Facebook and motorsport.tv if anybody's interested. There are some interesting characters in this series this year. For example, Igor Fraga, now second in the championship, is from Brazil, but was born in Japan. And no, he did not move to Sao Paulo in a saxophone box. He came into real world of racing from sim racing, and he's doing very well. And he will be racing in Europe this year, so we will keep him on the radar, our racing radar. Then we have Francisco Colapinto from Argentina. He is 16 and very quick, already a race winner in this series. He will also be on our radar, especially after saying yes when asked if he was the next Fangio. That's a big answer, but we'll see how it works out. Next character in Hot Wasabi is Yuki Tsunoda. He is being fast-tracked by Red Bull, what a shocker, but also by Honda, and will race in F2 this season. Most likely the next Japanese Formula 1 driver. I think he has only done 1 year of Formula 3 in Europe, and they're now putting him in Formula 2. He is hot-headed. Last year, on more than one occasion, he told his F3 team during the race to shut up. Not very trifle polite, a technique that will definitely not work with Mr. Horner or Dr. Marco. Very important news, sir. Driver signing. We need to pay attention here. And you know what that means. The second coming of Montoya is here. Sebastian Montoya, Juan Pablo's son, will race in the Italian Formula 4 with Prema team, which is one of the best junior teams in Europe. David Schumacher to race in Formula 3 with Czech team Charouz Racing, and David is, of course, nephew of Michael Schumacher and son of David. Now we go to ABC, spanning the globe to bring you constant variety of Formula 1, from slings and arrows to those who were once heroes. Now this is taken from this website called f1i.fr, credit where it's due, and I thought our listeners may enjoy this. This feature is called the worst transfers in the history of Formula 1, and you know who the poster child of this is. Some of the drivers' features include Italian Ivan Capelli. What could be greater honor and achievement for an Italian driver than invited to Maranello to ride a prancing horse in Grand Prix events? Alain Prost got fired for calling his Ferrari a truck, so Capelli was asked to carry the heavy load. Like Hill in Hungary, Capelli had come close to winning the French Grand Prix in Adrian Newey designed Leighton House March. So Ferrari thought they have the next Ascari, but the Ferrari dream turned into a nightmare for Capelli. Sad but true. Next, another Italian blood boils for Red Ferrari, our favorite Monsieur Jean Alesi. Waiting for contract confirmation from Williams just before they went on a championship-winning spree, he needed no motivation to sign for Ferrari, aided by Nelson Piquet Sr. in contract negotiation. Very impressive. And we all know how that ended, except for the happy moment on his birthday in Canada. Next, loose lips sink ships and bricks. This is the story of amazingly talented Fernando Alonso. Back-to-back championships over none other than Michael Schumacher, back when Lewis Hamilton was racing in Formula 3 and GP2. Then they were teammates at McLaren in 2007. Scoreboard today, Alonso 2, Hamilton 6, and counting. You may ask yourself, where is my beautiful third championship? I think the answer is not in GP2 engine nor beach cheer in Brazil. The biggest racing mistake, in my opinion, of Alonso's career was going behind Briatore's back and signing a contract with one of the finest keepers of Piranha Pool, also known as Control Freak, because I am convinced till the day I kicked the Coleman bucket that had he involved Flavio in contract negotiations with Duran, Flavio would have gotten in writing that my driver is numero uno. What say you on this situation, sir?
What situation? I really don't recall, except that, let me see, yeah, Ron Dennis was mean. That's about it.
No, the situation of not involving Flavio Briatore, who was his manager in his negotiations with Ron. That's what I meant.
Okay. Well, that was the biggest mistake of his career, which he's still paying for today. Flavio was the man. He would have protected him. He failed to recognize that, thinking that he was smarter than everybody. And to this day, Fernando Alonso is still paying for that mistake.
Yes, sir. Now we come to JV, Jacques Villeneuve, a real case of hero in 1997 to 0, as in points scored in 1998. So that was taken from F1i.fr, and hope this was of interest to our listeners. And sir, you talk a lot about Lewis being lucky and there is no competition. And this was a quote from him that I saw on the web, and it's very poignant, and it's impressive what people do to get where they do. And it's for this reason that I have utmost respect for not just him, but people like came from his background, Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen, Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso. So this is impressive. And this is what Lewis said, and I quote, "There were times along the way when I'd come home from school and I'm ready to go. And Dad would be like, sorry, we don't have the money this weekend, but hopefully by next race we'll have the money to keep us going. So my dad's the real hero. I'm just the one that's in the spotlight." End of quote. And this is talking about going to kart races, not even Formula 3 races. So all the best to Lewis and all the best to all the other 19 drivers. And we just hope we have a great, safe 2020 Formula 1 Grand Prix saison.
Thank you, Nas. Keep up the good work. Outstanding. Good job on the Pedro Lamy interview. And of course, I'm sure LCH will make you happy in 2020.
Well, Formula 1 will make me happy. Just by when somebody says Formula 1, I'm happy. And it will be great to see good racing. You know, we had some fantastic races. The German Grand Prix was unbelievable. And the rivalry between Seb and Charles Leclerc was very, very impressive. Max coming through against Leclerc was very impressive. And I was very, very happy to see Charles get his first win. And his win at Monza was very, very one for the ages, let's just put it this way. So I'm looking for a great season, and next weekend, we have the Daytona 500, which I'm really looking forward to, and see how that works out. And then next month we have Thunder in the Park in Albert Park, and we have Sebring and IndyCar racing starting. Oh, talking of IndyCar racing, news came out I've not seen, I did send an email to his uncle/manager, but I haven't received confirmation. But several reports are saying that Felipe Nasser and this another Brazilian kid, Sergio Sete Camara, who raced in GP2 or Formula 2 last few years, they will race and they will share racing duties. So if Felipe Nasser is racing in IndyCar racing, that will make me very, very happy. And I'm also very happy for him and his familia.
That's outstanding, Nas. That's wonderful news. Yes, we got the 500 coming up. You're going to plan on doing a little barbecuing?
Oh yes, I'll go tailgating at the Daytona Speedway. Oh man, talking of 500, I like the way you said 500.
Well, that's what we want to hear here at F1weekly.com. I think we're going to have to leave it there, Nas. Thank you. So while you're chuckling, I'm waving goodnight to the listeners, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.